So we're into 6G now. I just finished 5G. I was a leader on 5G, getting that done, and now they're up to 6.
Let's do it again.
What does that do? Give you a little bit deeper view into somebody's skin? See how perfect it is? I like the cameras the old days. So they just had a nice feature. Now they cover every little. Let's see, Michael, you're in good shape. You're not gonna. But I tell you, it's the 6 is coming, huh?
It's coming.
Does it ever end? And what happens? You'll be into 7, right? Before 6 gets old, you'll be into 7. Does that do? Give you a little bit deeper view into somebody's skin? Does that do? Give you a little bit deeper view into somebody's skin?
This is the Hive Mind Nation channel. Welcome to today's show. How is that for a Freudian slip? Donald Trump discussing moving forward with 6G and even admitting that 6G, which is the human augmentation biodigital convergence, the mixing of man, machine, computer, and AI, how it will enable Big Brother to see under your skin. Of course, laughing it off, using humor. Even the articles that were out there after the story of him announcing 6G were trying to pedal away from what he actually said and make it seem like he's a delusional old man. Articles like Trump bizarrely links 6G to camera tech and confusing remarks on next-gen networks. Grandpa Trump struggles to get his head around 6G. No, what he said was 100% truth, and they laugh it off and dismiss this stuff because the truth is always in plain sight. And they know that the majority, or I should say all of the citizens in this country, won't have the slightest clue about what's coming forward with the 6G biodigital convergence. And what we're talking about is metabolic energy harvesting, biofield hijacking, mRNA, immunosuppression. What we're talking about here is the Internet of Bodies. And what they won't tell you about 6G is how they're going to lean on terahertz waves, terahertz frequencies. And these frequencies go deep, so deep that it'll allow them to actually see under your skin. And I will get into the wearable technology and the Neuralink brain-computer interfaces in a few minutes so that people out there have a better understanding about what is actually coming, because the majority of the population think that 5G, 6G, that it's just going to allow them, because this is what they tell them and they believe what they're told like sheep will do, it's going to allow them to download things faster. It's going to make their internet speed faster, right? As if anybody out there is complaining about their internet speed at this point. Nobody saw a difference between 4G and 5G, and you're not going to see a difference between 5G and 6G in regards to how fast you can download music. But that's what they're going to tell you, and that's going to make the sheeple accept it, because they're going to go, oh, I want things faster. I need things faster. Oh, it's more convenient for me. But they're not going to tell you or how this is going to be able to penetrate your clothes and your skin. And people go, well, what's the big deal? What do I really want to hide that's under my skin? Well, we could start with what 6G surveillance is going to look like. The Internet of Bodies. We're talking about wearable implants, things like smart tattoos, nanotech, which will connect to networks for health tracking, which is why they've been sabotaging the health system, the healthcare system as we know it. They're doing it by design. They're making you trust less in the healthcare system. They're raising all these prices so that it makes it impossible for you to actually get healthcare. They're doing things like the United Healthcare assassination. They want to dismantle the system, just like you're seeing them dismantle our current government infrastructure. They're dismantling all systems to run through AI governance, which includes health tracking, okay? One of the other things that's out there that we've seen are all these stories about shooters. And, oh, how did this guy get a gun inside of a building? How did this kid get a gun inside of the school? Well, with 6G terahertz, they're going to be able to penetrate clothes. They're going to be able to detect weapons or drugs from afar. And that's how they're going to market this to the civilians. That, no, we're not going to come and take your guns. We're not going to, that's not what we were trying to say. We just want to make the school safer. So with 6G, we'll be able to track through people's clothing and see if they're carrying a weapon or not. They already ran these tests in the New York City subways, and all they need to do is come up with ideas of how to convince people that this is in their best benefit. So most people are thinking that all this stuff is going to come to the government grabbing your guns, but really What they want to do is they want to have the approval to be able to use surveillance to check and see if somebody's carrying a weapon or not. And then, of course, it goes further from there when we talk about government-created viruses or bioweapons like COVID, which we all know is the common flu. But any type of bioweapon they unleash, they're going to use 6G and monitor what's underneath your skin. So this is not healthy from so many different aspects. We can look at it from the surveillance state aspect, but we should really look at it from a health aspect because the type of frequencies we're talking about here are deadly. 5G, we all know how bad it's been. We know how many people have been suffering from, if you're near those towers, migraines, dizziness, cloudy thinking, right? Foggy thinking, tumors, cancer, all these other things that 5G causes, how it weakens and kills off the immune system. Well, 6G terahertz, all the testing that they've done on mice and things like that, okay, have literally caused DNA changes. So we're talking about changing you, right? We've heard Claus and we've heard all these guys talking about changing me. What they want to do is change who you are, what you are. And then you start thinking about them being able to see, once some of these devices are on your body, like wearables, or in your body, being able to see your thoughts, being able to, they'll be able to literally see your organs and things like that and tell you that this is the best medical care any human beings ever got if we go forward with this, which they'll go forward with and people will accept, and it'll be free and beneficial. And of course, eventually when you have the wearables and all the other stuff that they tell you is for your health, you'll actually be able to control human beings' minds. It's for mass mind control, kill switches. These are the things that we're talking about here. Total biohacking, under the skin surveillance, right? Next gen 6G wireless tech might use human bodies for energy. Remember the scene from The Matrix where he holds up the battery, turning a human being into this. That's what they're doing here. You and AI as one through 6G bioconvergence. And of course, you might as well call it what it really is, hacking humanity. Here are some clips, if you're not familiar with how they've been talking about this for years, how 6G is literally going to be inside of you, that the next wave of phones will be underneath your skin, that you yourself will become the phone, how this type of technology will enable them to see through walls and monitor us 24/7 in these smart cities on this surveillance grid.
I wanted to ask when you all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge.
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly?
I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
The U.S. government's Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency developed what they call next-generation non-surgical neurotechnology, designed to allow the human brain to directly interface with machines.
Know that DARPA is exploring human-machine interfaces that include direct connections between the brain and outside systems.
We could have a sensor maybe on the surface of our head, or maybe implanted somewhere in our body, in our brain, or something that allows us to interact directly with our communications gear, our processing gear, our weapon systems, and so on. You put this sensor on and you think the right way, and you can increase the speed of the fan by thinking and controlling that thought with direct-to-mind or mind-machine interfacing.
But there are those who believe that this same technology could also be used by DARPA as a new form of mind control. Like their counterparts at the CIA, DARPA-funded researchers have spent decades investigating how the human mind can be altered. Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. But DARPA's investigation of how machines can affect and possibly control the brain continues to this day.
There are explicit programs of DARPA to read and write to human brains.
We can send instructions and information to an actual person a distance with this kind of technology to let another person control their actions.
DARPA may possess the technology to remotely control the human mind. More permanent kind of mind control technology is looming. And it involves modifying the human brain by altering the human body.
And you put these pieces together that can be injected.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
Hello, Bethany speaking.
What are you doing?
This is Bethany, can you hear me?
Well, you're right in front of me.
But can you hear me down the phone?
Oh my God.
This is me. On the phone, I had it implanted. My hand is the phone. I can walk and talk because I'm on the phone inside my hand. I am the phone. This is what phones are going to be from now on. I have integrated. Thank you for your call. Subdermal implants. They charge themselves with motion like a self-winding watch. I get signal across 95% of UK mainland, 98 by next year.
It was ringing. You were ringing.
That's the speaker. So small. On the phone, I had it implanted. My hand is the phone. I am the phone. I am the phone.
Now let's talk about that 6G sensing side of things. Amanda, how does it work?
Well, as Peter mentioned, so in 6G, the network becomes sense itself, and it's a critical element for creating digital twins at scale. So if you think about, for example, the digital twin of a smart city, it really can keep the flow of the traffic, understand the flow of the traffic, the people, whether they are connected or non-connected.
All right, we got Peter giving us an example demonstration.
Yes, let's do that. All right, so what we have here is a live 6G demo using the prototype radio equipment. So we can see as Peter walked through the corridor, so this is a harbor environment. Imagine it's raining, it's foggy, and you can't really see that very clearly. And the system basically, using for communication, will be able to identify the location and distance of Peter as he walks through the corridor. So as you can see here, as Peter walks, the forklift came, and then he got a warning sign because the system understands the location of Peter, and then to ask the forklift to stop. And as he continues to walk and then exit the danger zone, then the forklift stops. So this is really a way to demonstrate how network will be able to sense, think, and act.
That's really quite remarkable that you can leverage the wireless capabilities to figure out what's going on in a space. Great for autonomous robots and things of that nature. Peter, give us a sense as to what's next from Nokia Bell Labs.
Well, we have in total set 6 research directions. Makes it easy to remember for 6G, right?
So that's what hell on earth actually looks like. And remember, Donald Trump is the one who's bringing all of this in. Well, they distract you every day with, here's a little leak from the Epstein files. Here's a little leak of this. Oh, trans people are doing that. Nobody's paying attention to the data centers and the build out of this surveillance state that Donald Trump is bringing in. Even these clowns like RFK. Remember when he said every American within the next 4 years, they expect them to be wearing wearables?
In fact, we're about to launch one of the biggest advertising campaigns in HHS history to encourage Americans to use wearables. It's a way of people can take control over their own health. They can take responsibility. They can see, as you know, what food is doing to their glucose levels, their heart rates, and a number of other metrics as they eat it. And they can begin to make good judgments about their diet, about their physical activity, about the way that they live their lives. We think that wearables are a key to the MAHA agenda, making America healthy again. And we are going to, my vision is that every American is wearing a wearable within 4 years.
And of course, wearables with 6G technology will give them instant access underneath your skin. And from there, of course, we go into the smartphones becoming obsolete and brain-computer interfaces. And these psychopaths like Yuval Harari and Klaus Schwab telling you for years and years and years that the plan has always been to see, to be under your skin.
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, We need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin, their body temperature. Like we walked in here, we had to go through a body temperature test. I think maybe in a couple of decades when people look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin. The biometric sensor. It's the thing, it's the gadget, it's the technology that converts biological data into digital data that can be analyzed by computers. And having the ability to really monitor people under the skin, this is the biggest game changer of all. With this kind of surveillance, I mean, you watch the big president, the big leader, gives a speech on television. The television could be monitoring you and knowing whether you're angry or not, just by analyzing the cues, the biological cues coming from your body. So now people are now watching us online, all over the world, this conversation. Now, maybe even right now, the people who are watching us are being watched and analyzed. And the thing is, it's not just you're now watching this. The thing is, we know that you're watching this and we also know how you feel. Are you angry about what you hear? Are you frightened? Are you bored? This is the kind of power that Stalin didn't have. When Stalin gave a speech, everybody, of course, clapped their hand and smiled. Now, how do you know what they really think about Stalin? It's very difficult. You can't have a KGB agent following everybody all the time. Even if you do it, he's just watching your outside behavior. He doesn't really know what's happening in your mind. But in 10 years, the future Stalins of the 21st century, they could be watching the minds, the brains of all the population all the time. And also they will have the computing power to analyze all that. It's not just having an agent following everybody all the time. The agent in Stalin's days writes a paper report, and you have these millions of paper reports piling up in Moscow. Somebody needs to read them, to analyze them. That's impossible. Now you don't need human agents. You don't need human analyzers. You just have a lot of sensors and an AI which analyzes it, and that's it. You have the worst totalitarian regime in history. And COVID is important because COVID legitimizes some of the crucial steps, even in democratic countries. The really big thing is hacking human beings. To hack human beings, you need a lot of biological knowledge, a lot of computing power, and especially a lot of data. If you have enough data about me, and enough computing power and biological knowledge, you can hack my body, my brain, my life. You can reach a point when you know me better than I know myself. And once you reach that point, and we are very close to that point, then democracy, the free market as we have, and actually all political systems, also authoritarian regimes, we have no idea what happens once you pass that point. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough. And nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed in the basic rules of the game of life. All of life, for 4 billion years, dinosaurs, amoebas, tomatoes, humans, all of life was subject to the laws of natural selection and to the laws of organic biochemistry. But this is now about to change. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life, after being confined for 4 billion years to the limited realm of organic compounds, science may enable life to break out into the inorganic realm. So after 4 billion years of organic life shaped by natural selection, we are entering the era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. So does the data about my DNA, my brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me or to some corporation or to the government or perhaps to the human collective? Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Free will, that's over.
That's over.
Over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, I mean, everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance. So let's do it.
Vaccine won't help us go
the
to the
vaccine
test, of course.
will help us, of course. It will make things, you know, more manageable. Surveillance. People could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us. The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing, it changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course this has a big impact on your identity.
And offers certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. You know, when you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. Of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications. And we have to be prepared for it, and that's what we want to do in Davos next year. So this fourth industrial revolution is, it doesn't change what you are doing, it changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, It's you who are change.
So here we have Donald Trump, the father of the vaccine, who will now be the father of 6G in America, convincing people, which I've said many times. How many times do they have to come out and they go, well, we're in a race with China, for these sheeple to go, oh, yeah, well, we got to get to 6G before China. Oh, yeah, we got to get the data centers and AI before China. And they just nod and say yes. They don't even know what it means. And they go, I'm not smart enough to understand what it actually means, right? Just like when we all tried to explain what the vaccine was, an mRNA, and everybody called us all insane. It was too late for people to learn it. Most of the people who ended up getting vaccinated, a lot of them actually woke up and said, oh, I regret it. I shouldn't have done it. I should have done my research. They dismissed the stuff we were all saying at first. It's the same thing here. They're going to have this all built out with the data centers. They're going to have this all built out with AI. Nobody's paying attention to it. They're going to have it all built out with 6G. And then they're going to replace Donald Trump with some other character because these are hand-selected characters. And Donald Trump is just here for the left-right divide to distract, to cause just countless amounts of things that should not even be issues that we're discussing, whether it's the trans stuff, whether it's the government-fed Epstein files, while we're watching them build out the World Economic Forum's, the United Nations, artificial intelligence governance. That's what this is about, and that's what 6G is going to give them. It's going to give them total control, including of you. They are transitioning all governments across the world into artificial intelligence run governance. One of the first things that we're seeing, of course, is how there are mass federal firings. All of these people in Congress can't afford to have a government shutdown because they're not getting paid right now, right? So a lot of workers are quitting their job. Donald Trump is threatening that they're going to fire all of these people. Now, most people are under the impression that these employees are just going to be fired and never actually replaced. Well, they're right. They're never going to be replaced with human beings. But once everything is run through artificial intelligence, well, then people will start realizing that this is a game that they've been playing. The left-right divide, pointing fingers at one another, keeping you distracted while they're building this out right in front of your face. So all these employees are losing their jobs. Trump is even saying that he's going to withhold their pay, forcing them to quit. And then you look at the other noise around us with the government shutdown, talking about air traffic control once again. As I covered for months and months and months, all of these planes crashing into one another, planes falling out of the sky. Who's to blame? DEI hires, right? All part of their game, because every part of our day-to-day life is going to be run through AI. And that is part of what they've done with the DEI narrative. They're making regular people afraid to get on an airplane because they don't know if the person flying the plane even has the credentials to fly a plane, right? Because he was hired because of his skin color or what his preference or her preference was in the bedroom or what their pronouns might have been. Planes are falling out of the sky because DEI hires an air traffic controller, making it unsafe to fly because these people do not know what they're doing. It's all part of the game. And now all the narrative out there again is that we have more problems in the airline industry. People's flights are getting canceled. People who are flying for jobs, for meetings, aren't able to get there because there's a shortage of employees. But don't worry, because we already know what the solution is, and that's part of what they've been telling us for a few years now, that AI is going to replace air traffic controllers, just like AI is going to replace your government. AI is going to replace you. AI is going to run and control everything. So while all this is going on, well, everybody's kind of just saying, well, I'm glad the government shut down, which of course everybody should be glad the government shut down, but the government's never really been running. All the people in Congress are actors, and what they're doing is sabotaging every part of the infrastructure that's been in place. The government itself would actually function if this entire system wasn't controlled by them. If you could actually vote for, say, the guy up the street, that maybe he was a better person than any of these guys on the ballot. You could put him on there and say, hey, everybody in town likes this guy. Maybe we should run him for president. Well, he doesn't have millions of dollars to get on the ballot, right? And of course, we know that none of the votes actually count because they never even show us or prove to us that they count. We just turn on a television set and we're told, this is the president, here's your new senator, here's your new governor. And these sheeple actually believe that somebody somewhere is counting all of this up and that they're actually trusting the people and allowing the people to control who are in these positions of power. And it's an utter joke. So while all that's going on, while our government is shut down or pretending to be shut down, what they're doing is transitioning you into AI governance, showing you that, look, the economy's fine with the government shutdown. The stock market's at an all-time high. Nobody seems to care that these people aren't there. We don't need these people, right? Well, of course. And they don't want you to need people in power, because once AI governance is put into place, you are under 100% surveillance and 100% control like never before. So while that's all happening, the UN just had their big UN meeting, right? And what was going on at the UN meeting? Well, all people were talking about is how Donald Trump's escalator, stopped functioning, and how he read them the riot act on the teleprompter about, hey, this is a disgrace that my escalator stopped. I'm going to investigate this. It's sabotage. Well, you got the sabotage part, right? Because what they're doing is sabotaging government and distracting you with little childish things like escalators going off. While right in front of you, Donald Trump was talking about what? He was talking about bringing in an AI certificate for verification, which is another fancy term for the digital ID. And this is from the World Economic Forum this week. The UN has moved to close the gap in AI governance. And if you think Donald Trump's not in on it, you're just convincing yourself of that. Because if you're not paying attention to what's happening in America with AI governance, what do you think all these data centers are actually for? I know that MAGA and the alt-right media don't want to address these things because they don't want to actually admit that Donald Trump is bringing in the United Nations and the World Economic Forum's AI governance infrastructure to America. In fact, they want America to be first in line ahead of everybody else as they build out this technocracy here in America. Well, Donald Trump accelerating federal permitting of data center infrastructure. Trump executive order pushes for quicker data center construction. So what do you think the data center construction is for? It's for AI governance. It is to bring in a full-on surveillance state. Every single thing that is recorded, every single camera that is filming something, it's all going into these data centers. In fact, you are a part of these data centers. Every single thing you ever said online or ever say online, every email that you send, every blink that you make in front of a camera, all of it is going to be a part of these data centers. But they don't want you to think about what these data centers are. They just want you to know that these data centers are coming and they're being built all around you. But don't worry about that. Worry about if men are playing men's sports and women are playing women's sports, and worry about things that 10-year-olds would talk about in a high school auditorium instead of worrying about what your corrupt government is doing. Building out the Tower of Babel reborn, because that's what AI governance is. And what you're seeing is them play this game. You may have noticed over the last couple of years or so, when they have these hearings in Congress of people like Sam Altman, Mark Zuckerberg, they go into Congress and they get read the riot act, right? You're canceling this, you're doing that, you're suppressing speech here, right? Nothing ever gets accomplished because it's part of the show. That's what Congress is. It's a show. They put it on TV so that you watch it. You think that these people are actually working for you in case you're actually thinking about a revolution or holding these people accountable. So all these big tech guys go into Congress, and what do they talk about? Censorship. They talk about regulations of AI, regulations of social media, and nothing gets resolved, right? And that's all been done by design for what's happening right now, so that the governments around the earth can come together as one. The United Nations, World Economic Forum, all of them, and blame people like Mark Zuckerberg and blame people like Sam Altman and say, look, these companies are running rampant on their own. They're unregulated. But the fact of the matter is Altman, Zuckerberg, all of these CEOs work for DARPA. They're DARPA employees, just like Elon Musk. They do not come up with this technology, okay? This is government technology. Their job is to sell it to you, to give you the illusion that you're going out and you're purchasing a phone that's going to keep you under surveillance inside your home because you want to purchase it. And that's exactly what people are doing. Like I've said a million times, that they knocked on your door before the cell phone came out and said, here's the new phone. Look at it. It doesn't plug into the wall. You walk around. This is from the government. You're going to have it. Everybody go, no way. It's the illusion that you're buying these things. You're buying an Alexa. You're buying a Ring for your own self-enjoyment or for your own protection. That's what they're doing. And now all this stuff is coming to a head with these characters in Congress pretending to be, the CEOs of corporations, but really they're just DARPA employees. Even recently we had Google, right? Google admitting we censored everybody. We terminated all of these accounts during COVID because the Biden administration told us to, but now we're bringing everybody back. We're going to bring back MAGA. Well, they'll bring MAGA back, of course, but they won't bring people like the call for an uprising back, right? I mean, this has been going on for years and years and years. Only takes about 10 seconds for it to get reviewed and it automatically gets rejected, but they're pretending, right, that Congress is working for you and they're bringing back your rights. They're taking the power out of big tech's hand. They're putting it in the government's hand. And this is all of these clowns at the United Nations, including an actor who I want to play what he happened to say as well. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, best known for playing Robin in the Batman movies. Well, he's there, right? You might say, why is this guy speaking there? Well, because actors are also government assets as well. And they're speaking there to get you on board because they're the social influencers, the social engineers. And listen to all of them talk about how big tech has been, how wonderful all this technology is, but it's time to regulate it. We need rules and all this stuff in place. Now their job is to convince you that we need a global entity to monitor everything online because it's gotten out of control. Big tech has taken away speech. Big tech has allowed this versus that. Big tech has allowed young kids to look at pornography. We got to get the government involved. And really what it's about is giving the government control, which they already have, but your permission to allow them to bring in what they're calling AI governance, to police everything. And of course, this all leads, as Gordon will tell you, to a digital ID, which we all really need because it's not fair that people out there are anonymous or people out there might be pretending to be somebody that they're not. So we need not only AI governance, we need full-on ending anonymity on the net.
The establishment of the UN Independent International Scientific Panel on AI and the Global Dialogue on AI Governance marks a significant step forward in a global effort to harness the benefits of artificial intelligence while addressing its risks. The scientific panel on AI will serve as a crucial bridge between cutting-edge AI research and policy making. By providing rigorous, independent scientific assessments, it will help the international community to anticipate emerging challenges and make informed decisions about how we govern this transformative technology. The Secretary General calls on all stakeholders to support this historic initiative and contribute to building a future where artificial intelligence serves the common good of all humanity.
The power of AI is too important to be left to just a privileged few. We must harness its potential, minimize its risk, and equalize its reach. Experts say AI could accelerate progress on nearly 80% of the Sustainable Development Goals. Within this decade, it will reshape industry, economies, and societies faster than any technology before it. To harness it, we must invest in people, in digital skills, in inclusive education, in AI literacy, so no one is left behind. Because the future will not be shaped by algorithms alone. It will be shaped by choices we make together, if we decide so.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's the first time I've ever been to any kind of function of the United Nations, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited about it. Thank you all very much for inviting me. So, the 20th Annual Internet Governance Forum. No big surprise, we're going to be speaking a lot here about artificial intelligence. It's easy to see that AI is changing the internet a lot, and arguably it's poised to change the whole world. Of course, nobody knows exactly how. Personally, I believe that this technology has the potential to make our lives better in so many ways, to solve big problems and to expand knowledge, to create beauty. But I also do see the potential for harm, for a greater and greater concentration of power, and for the denigration of humanity itself. So how do we get the good stuff and avoid the bad stuff, right? Well, I think that one of the keys is in the very name of this gathering, the Internet Governance Forum. We need to have some governance. We need to establish some values. We need to make some rules. We need to set up systems to enforce those rules. Look at the last 20 years of another revolutionary technology, social media. Governments largely stayed hands-off with social media. We put our trust in Silicon Valley. And yes, social media has been beneficial in a lot of ways, but it's also been deeply damaging in a lot of other ways. And we might have mitigated some of that harm if we had been more proactive with our governance. Now, I know a lot of you here probably have a lot of good ideas about how to govern AI. I'll briefly mention the specific idea that I'm here to talk about. I'm going to dive more deeply into it later. And that's the basic principle that your digital self should belong to you. That the data that humans produce, our writings and our voices and our connections, our experiences, our ideas, should belong to us. And that, yeah, thanks.
So that's what all these people are talking about in front of you while Donald Trump's building out the data centers, talking about all this stuff that doesn't actually matter. You have all these unelected people talking to you about how somebody needs to hold Zuckerberg accountable. And that sounds good on paper because everybody goes, yeah, these guys, Zuckerberg, these guys on YouTube, they censored all of us. Somebody does need to hold them accountable. But that's been the ploy that they've been pulling. The government's been behind it the whole time. The government is behind the internet. Facebook is really LifeLog, the creation of the CIA. Okay? Google is really Alphabet Inc., which is really a tentacle of the United States government, a way of watching and monitoring the things that you're thinking and what you're searching on the internet, because you're literally telling them by everything you search what you're thinking about. They're already inside of your mind. And now they're all coming together using terms like equality, equity, science. This terminology is to confuse you as if what they're doing is, well, you're not smart enough to figure out what this is scientifically. You know, us building a control grid where you're not going to be able to piss without our say-so, where we're going to be able to turn off your electricity because of all the smart devices you have whenever we feel like it. We'll have the police at your door if you tweet something or post something on Facebook that we don't like. If you search for something in a Google search and we think that it's controversial, like, I don't know, how to know the government is tyrannical, well, we'll show up at your front door and arrest you. Of course, don't you dare search for something like the blood libel or what really may have happened in certain wars and everything else. They'll show up at your front door. Right? And as Gordon said, right, your digital self should belong to you. And the only way to do that is to bring in a digital ID as well, because the AI governance runs through a digital identity. Every single thing is done through the internet. Just imagine they lock you down again and they tell you there's another COVID. And you might say, well, I'm not going to fall for that. Well, you don't have to fall for it, but when every single store is shut down in your town because the government shuts them down, and you're forced to buy your groceries online, and you're forced to shop fully online, and you're forced to school your kids online, and then you realize, well, you got to have a digital ID to do all of this stuff, well, then you're going to struggle to figure out how to get away from this system when you're forced into this system. And as we see in the UK, they're telling you digital ID is coming, and you're not going to be able to work without it. Another thing that we're seeing going on is these characters being revealed in front of us as not even being real AI. For example, when Donald Trump gave that speech about Charlie Kirk's fake assassination attempt, many people noticed that it was AI. Even the sheeple in the comments were questioning if it was, is he glitching? They're using AI-generated Trump to speak to us? This is AI, right? My guy is so dead, they're using AI. Everybody in the comments and everybody out there has been talking about it, even the mainstream a bit, about how it was an AI version of Donald Trump. Well, guess what? Guess what? That's going on all around the earth right now. How about over in Germany? You know how the German government is going all in on AI? Well, they have an AI version of their own president that they're using to condition the masses. They're calling it the Wimitar, an AI avatar of the German state minister for culture and media. Launched in late September, it's intended to be a public example of fair AI that promotes creativity and strengthens democratic discourse. And for the most part, their artificial intelligence is so advanced that we don't know if any of these people that have been presented to us on television are even real in the first place. And most people actually don't believe that. It's just a hard thing to sell to people because they go, I can't think of that. Biden wasn't real. Now you tell me Trump is AI. Well, how do you think these 90-year-old people are flying around on jets all over the place? They're trying to convince you that, even recently, Donald Trump doesn't sleep. He's up all night. He wants to talk about politics, and he wants to talk how he could better this and do that. And people look at these guys, they're in their 80s. And you're going, how do these guys have more energy than us? We're all getting hit with the same EMF frequencies as them. Well, they're using AI in a lot of cases. And you might say, well, we would see a lot of the glitches in the AI. Well, people saw the glitch in the Trump AI. But the AI that the government uses is so far advanced that there aren't any glitches in it. But it's hard for people to fathom that they're watching a simulation where there's characters pretending to be politicians, and half the time they're not even there. They're using AI. So even in Russia, we have the crackdowns going on with digital freedoms, right? Russia's been using the WeChat for a couple of months now, where when you purchase your phone, this app is automatically on your phone. So in order to have the phone, you got to have this app on your phone. You can't get rid of the app. And what's on the app? Well, the app has government has full access to the mic, to the camera, to the user data, and they share it with the state right into those data centers, right, that they're building out. Well, same thing here in America that Donald Trump is building out. All of these clowns are working together and bringing in AI governance. And right now, this is just a shakedown with the government shutdown. We've seen it many, many times. But this is just we're going to remove all these jobs. Well, how are we going to replace them? We're having trouble with air traffic control, and the shutdown's been going down for a while now. What are we going to do? People have to fly. They got to go on vacation. They got to, travel for work. Well, AI is the key. We have a system that runs on AI, and people will accept that. Why? Because they've been conditioned over the last 10 years to hate people who don't think like them. People who don't look like them. You're black, I don't like you. You're white, I don't like you. You're racist, you're racist. You're gay, I don't like you. Your hair's blue, you're a Democrat. Oh, now all of a sudden you have AI and you go, well, it's better than a DEI hire. I'd rather have AI do this because AI doesn't see race, it doesn't see this or that. Well, of course, AI is programmed to see one thing and one thing only. Anybody who's a threat to the state and to their control is they're programmed to go after, right? And that'll end up being everyone. Because when Democrats realize that the system is not for them and Republicans realize that this AI system is not for them and this entire thing is a control grid and a surveillance state, then everybody will be upset, but it'll be too late because the infrastructure will already be in place. And that's what they're doing right now while they distract you with nonsense on a day in, day out basis. The game known as politics, known as the left Democratic Party, the right Republican Party, to stop buying into the psyops, to stop thinking and caring about issues that are non-issues and pay attention to things like the digital ID, because it doesn't matter what your politics are. It doesn't matter if you're straight or gay, black or white. The digital ID will enslave all of mankind. If you're a human, which most of these people who are implementing this don't seem to be, but for the rest of us who are human, this will affect all of us for the rest of our lives. And I mentioned in my previous video about Donald Trump talking about how he wants to bring in the AI ID verification and, of course, what's happening now in the UK. And this is one of the headlines in the Daily Mail. Is the tech giant who gave Blair 275 million euros in line for huge ID card contract. And the ghoul you see, well, the multiple ghouls you see on your screen are Tony Blair and Larry Ellison. For those of you that don't know Larry Ellison, we're getting close to Halloween. And of course, as most of you know, I don't participate in that satanic holiday. But if you do, if you're somebody who likes to decorate your yard with scary skeletons and you go to Spirit World or you go to Home Depot and you buy some of those ridiculous things that people put in their front lawns like Michael Myers. Well, if you really want to scare your neighbors, maybe just put a giant poster up of this ghoul, Larry Ellison, who, by the way, is 81 years old. Now, you wouldn't look at him and think he was an 81-year-old man, which, of course, tells us that Larry's getting plenty of that red liquid that they love to take from the young children. Of course, many shows have depicted how these big tech giants, over the years I've covered it, how they like to have IVs to go directly into their bodies of blood of young children to make them feel young. But we know it doesn't need to go right into their IV. It just goes right into their mouth. Just ask Larry Ellison. So if you're ready for Halloween, well, it's a good time to talk about Larry Ellison because Larry Ellison is one of the biggest advocates for the digital ID. He's also currently going back and forth between him and Elon Musk, at least we're told, as one of the richest men or the richest man in the world. But Larry never gets any play. No one ever talks about Larry Ellison. It's just the same characters. Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates. We need to pay attention to these guys like Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Larry Ellison, Jeff Bezos, who does get some attention, who I've exposed in the past, Sam Altman. These are the guys who are building our enslavement. And they're keeping you distracted while Donald Trump is building out these massive data centers because people don't understand what the data centers are. So they're too busy with Charlie Kirk. Who said this about Charlie Kirk? Let's silence that person. Let's dox them. And right in front of your faces, Donald Trump is standing next to all of these big tech giants who are fully responsible for all of the crises that have been created over the last couple of years, all in the name of bringing in this digital ID, which will empower them for the rest of their lives. It'll not just empower them, it'll put their shoe on the throat of the rest of humanity, because we will lose all of our rights, including the right to free thought and free speech. So Larry Ellison has been one of the biggest advocates for the digital ID. In fact, Larry Ellison was asking for a digital ID since September 11th. Now, at the time, people weren't as tech savvy and tech reliant as they are now, so it wasn't really a possibility. Obviously, we know that September 11th was all about bringing in the Patriot Act so that these psychopaths could spy on us in our own homes every single day legally without any of us having the right to obviously object to that. The only way you could object to it is by not cooperating with their technology and not allowing it inside of your home. But of course, when they sell you this stuff and tell you it's for your benefit, people don't realize that it's really the government who's selling you things like the Alexa or the Ring camera. They're the ones who are behind it. They just put shell companies in front of it. These are all DARPA creations, and these tech giants are all operatives of DARPA. So Ellison's been calling for the digital ID for a while. And as I've mentioned before, many people out there with COVID-19, they think of so many different things. They don't realize that the main objective was not depopulation. The main objective was to bring in a digital ID. This is an article from World Economic Forum, how digital ID can improve lives in a post-COVID world. They're making you do things like contact tracing. They're making you do things like social distance. This was all to convince you that a digital ID would be the best way to track the virus, so people weren't afraid of the virus. People weren't scared of getting a cough or a runny nose. People noticed that the data was saying that there was 0% of the flu the year that COVID came out. And people were saying, well, those are the same exact symptoms. If people actually are getting sick, is it the flu? Is it COVID? Is it pneumonia? Or is it nothing actually at all? People weren't spooked the way that they expected them to be. So a lot of the arguments around COVID were about the vaccine, of course, and the vaccine plays a big part into biometric surveillance. However, the digital ID has been the thing they've been trying to implement. So, like I said, they pivoted. Remember how many variants we had? We had Omicron and all these other ridiculous variants. They pivoted from that. They just completely stopped it because the data showed them that nobody was buying it. People weren't going to CVS. There was maybe 10% of the population were lunatics who were going and getting boosted and boosted and boosted, the same ones you still see wearing masks and begging the government to make more boosts. So they said, look, this isn't working. We're not going to be able to get these people on board with a digital ID to track viruses and biometric. We aren't going to get it. We got to think of something else. And of course, as it always goes with the government, problem, reaction, solution, they had to create a new problem. And the new problem was the immigration issue. All of a sudden, Democrats didn't care about the border, right? People like Joe Biden, who were on the record for years and years and years talking about border security and how we got to keep people out, keep illegals out. All of a sudden, they're letting the borders open. And they gave you all these stories about they're leaving the border open because they want immigrants to come and vote for them. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't just America. It was the UK, Australia. And just like the mental virus that was COVID, we had a new mental virus, which was called the immigration process, which again has played into conservatives so much so that they're allowing ICE and Palantir to use mass surveillance on their citizens in order to get rid of illegals because they're in the psychosis. So Larry Ellison is linked directly to everything that's going on in the UK. Of course, Tony Blair's been an advocate for this for a long time, and now this is coming in the UK via their new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Starmer. And I want to play this speech for you and listen to the arrogance of these people. And listen to how they threaten you, just like they threatened you during COVID. They said, you're going to go and do this or else. You're going to go and do this or else. Well, there was pushback, and they pivoted. And now what people need to do is push back. He's telling you you're not going to be able to have a job, and that's the way it is. You won't work by the year 2029 unless you have a digital ID in the UK.
You will all have issues in your own countries. But in Britain, it's illegal migration. And I suspect that may be the same in a number of other countries. For too many years, it's been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy, and remain here illegally. Because, frankly, we've been squeamish about saying things that are clearly true. It's not just that it's not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages, but the simple fact that every nation needs to have control over its borders. We do need to know who is in our country. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. Otherwise, it undermines trust, undermines people's faith that we're on their side, and their belief that the state can and will work for them. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, let him spell it out as he puts his hands in the position of the triangle of power, as he says, you won't be able to work in the UK. Now, there's petitions out there where many people are signing these petitions because this is an issue where the left and the right should be on board. And I can't emphasize this enough, that the left has to look at this as something that, well, if Donald Trump has that type of power to silence people and do all this stuff, then they shouldn't want to be in it. And Republicans have to think the same way, since they're in the psychosis, about someone like Obama or Biden being in power and how silenced people were during COVID. We can't allow these people to have this type of power. So a petition does zero. But you know what actually does something? Calling their bluff and not complying. Saying, you know what, you're going to do this in 2029, then we're going to form our own society. We don't need you anymore. And that makes them pivot again because they have to keep control over you. And they have a lot of control now because of the internet, because of technology, and they want more. And we can't give them more. We can't expect society to suddenly shut off the internet. But if people do and people resist, then they'll pull back the reins because they still obviously have a lot of control over people's minds and they can't lose that. But if people don't comply and people say, that's fine, we won't work in your society. We'll just start our own businesses with one another and we'll barter with one another and trade resources, etc. with one another. We'll go back to the Little House of the Prairie days and we'll shut off the internet until you decide that you're not going to pass a digital ID and you decide you're going to leave us alone. And then maybe we'll participate again in your society, even though none of us should be participating in their society. In fact, you want to talk about mental health and all the stuff going on in the world. The real disease is social media. The real disease is the internet. And I'm not being a hypocrite. I'm aware that I'm speaking to you through the internet, but I'm using this means, and I'm trying to use this means for good, to help people wake up because there's so many people in the psychosis of listening to these news stories and not paying attention to the real threat to humanity, which is this big tech push that's happening right next to Donald Trump. He's standing side by side on day one of his presidency with Larry Ellison. He's standing right next to Sam Altman, okay? For those of you that don't understand, you're looking around going, I don't understand what's so bad about a digital ID. What's the big deal? This is from the World Economic Forum during COVID, when they pushed that article saying how the digital ID could really help us all take care of COVID. Look what the digital identity is connected to. It's connected to smart cities, healthcare, financial services, banking, food, okay, being able to buy and access food, being able to travel and mobility, having the ability to travel. You won't be able to without a digital ID. You'll be able to get food. You won't be able to have financial services like banking. You won't be able to have healthcare, okay? Their smart cities will run on digital identities, so you won't be able to enter these smart cities, which you don't want to enter anyway, but it's a threat against you saying that all this stuff is going to run through a digital identity. Telecommunications, e-government, social platforms, all of it, e-commerce. This is what they are trying to implement and have been trying to implement. This is a control system where they could freeze bank accounts, where they could shut you out from buying groceries if you write something online that is anti-government. They could do whatever they want to you, and it's about behavioral control. That's the name of the game. Here's Larry Ellison talking about just this and how if we bring in this massive surveillance state, it'll affect people's behaviors because people will be forced to be good little citizens because we'll be watching you 24/7, including when you try to take a leak.
Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, by the way, and the camera's always on. You don't turn it on and off. And by the way you turn it on, you can't turn it on. I'm going to the bathroom. Oracle, I need 2 minutes to take a bathroom break, and we'll turn it off. The truth is, we don't really turn it off. What we do is we record it so no one can see it, but no one can get into that recording without a court order.
That's the world that these people are trying to create, and they're doing it right in front of you. These projects like Stargate, these $500 billion projects, are being pushed by Donald Trump. And they don't want you to pay attention to it, so they keep telling you these things and talking about those things. The left's doing this, the right's doing that, and the alt-right media is taking their orders directly from the CIA, and that's what they're keeping you stuck in. While they're moving forward with these billion-dollar data centers that, if you ask anybody in the streets, they don't know what that means. These data centers are the surveillance state that Trump is bringing in. This is the AI governance. In other words, every camera everywhere, all of this data is going to go into these data centers. You'll never be able to escape. In other words, every movement you make, every thought you put on the internet will all be monitored in these data centers. You're the data going into these data centers. And included in your data, we should also not forget on day one of Trump's presidency how Larry Ellison went on stage next to Donald Trump at the White House and talked about curing cancer and gene editing, right? Immediately on day one, talking about how Oracle wants your DNA. And they want one big Oracle system for AI to study. And all of that will be in the data centers as well.
One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do it using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
So that's what Oracle wants. That's what Stargate is all about. That's what these data centers are about. And it starts with behavioral control. We have Peter Thiel buddied up with Donald Trump. We have Larry Ellison buddied up with Donald Trump. We have Larry Fink buddied up with Donald Trump. And with Peter Thiel comes Alex Karp of Palantir. Isn't it interesting that every one of these people who are billionaires, who are working with the White House, who have been given authority in the U.S. military by Donald Trump, all of them are talking about you and me and how they want to control our behavior. And people don't think far with that. They go, whatever, we want people to be good people. That's not what they're trying to implement. They're trying to make sure that you don't question Big Brother or big government. You don't question government overreach, because if you do, you're going to get slapped in the wrist. They're going to have the reins, and you're going to be cattle to them. And that's why people have to come out of the left and right and realize these people are not going to stand up for LGBTQ+, just as much as they're not going to stand up for Christians. They're keeping us all fighting with one another so that they can bring this in, so that they can manipulate your behavior into being good little citizens, which means act like the sheeple in China. Don't question Big Brother or you'll be punished.
Citizens will be on their best behavior.
Behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. What we are doing internally is, if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. Okay, you have to force behaviors, and if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. Behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
What we do is we use what legal scholars call predicate-based search. So we would look at you, and then we would go out and say, oh, there's lots of different things in your life that may be indicative of someone involved in bad behavior.
Then we were asked if we were willing to supply our product philanthropically, basically for free, and I was very in favor of this because our primary mission is, in fact, to set a global standard for the world for behavior.
Well, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally.
Central question, in my view, of civil liberties is how, it's not if the government has data, because let's assume the government has as much data as a health insurance company. It's how is that data being used? Is it being used in a way that's lawful? Meaning, do they have the right to use it? And is it being migrated into places it's not allowed to be used? We allow the enforcement of rules that the government ought to enforce. And by the way, my experience is they want to enforce, or at the very least know they need to enforce. And if it's framed in that way, then you can have what is the ultimate Silicon Valley solution.
And that's all Donald Trump's buddies. These people are all aligned with Trump, and they go, he's not going to bring it in, though. He's not going to bring it in. Oh, right, he was just over in the UK with the Prime Minister last week, talking about bringing in AI and working together. That's what this AI infrastructure is. This is what AI governance is. And then when you think about Palantir, that's the end game. Palantir is getting put in a spotlight. You may have noticed their stock is booming by design because they want Palantir to be a household name, just like Apple, a corporation. They want you to think it's a corporation and that it's not DARPA, that it's not the deep state working here. They want you to think it's just a company that's got really good technology. It's going to help us move forward in society. But that's not what it's there for. It's there for predictive policing. Things like the Gotham Project. How Palantir is really it's really Israeli surveillance is what it actually is. And people out there only know the word Palantir, the name Palantir, because they're trying to make them into heroes in America. That ICE is paying Palantir, and Palantir is building out this big immigration OS surveillance platform. So people are going, that's great. Let's get rid of these immigrants. Let's get rid of them now. That's what the people in the psychosis say. Let's get rid of them. We don't need them here. We don't want them here. Okay. Well, there's something to illegal immigration and everything else. Yeah, it is a problem, but it's a government created problem. They could easily stop this without digital IDs, without Palantir. It's pretty easy, right? I mean, you ever try to walk into Canada? You can't, right? You got to get through. You're going to get caught at the border and can't. Well, what's the problem here? Well, the problem here is that they're letting people in. They're paying people to come in so that they could bring this in. And now Palantir is getting put on us into a spotlight. Oh, Palantir is helping arrest all these people. But really what Palantir is doing is it's compiling data on all Americans, me and you, not just illegal immigrants. And what is this leading to? Well, this is leading to what they want, which is predictive policing, which most people don't understand what that means. Well, let me explain. Predictive policing is the thought police, which means when the media starts to turn the lever on who a terrorist is in this country, like they've done over the last 8 years. Think about 10 years ago. A terrorist was a guy in a cave, right, looking like Osama bin Laden. That's a terrorist. Then, when Biden was president, what was a terrorist? Conservative voters. What? And all the Democrats were like, yeah, they are. Yep, the insurrection, which again, a very obvious black ops government operation. And now what's a terrorist? Left wings are terrorists, right? So they've told you that all citizens are now terrorists, right? And they can continue to turn that whatever way they want. So if you're now left wings are terrorists, well, if you're trans and you're online, well, guess what? You're going to be put on a watch list, not just a watch list. You could be arrested ahead of time because the government could say, well, our data from AI is telling us that the person who's trans, who's online reading about Columbine, might be likely to go shoot up a school. So we're going to arrest him and prevent the school shooting. And everyone's going to cheer and go, yeah, arrest him. He's trans. And then they could put a Dem in power, whatever they feel like doing, and say, same thing. Oh, conspiracy theorists, lunatics, like a call for an uprising are online talking about the government conspiring against the people, how the nations conspire. That's dangerous. We're going to arrest him before we have some type of situation like, they'll just say like the Unabomber or something like that because he's anti-tech, right? And then they'll arrest me ahead of time. It's a world that we've seen in Minority Report that looks like this, and it'll be marketed like this, and the sheeple will eat it up. Because remember, these people are so easily marketable. They don't realize, when they watch these big pharma commercials, they're running on the beach, they're holding hands, they're kissing, waterfalls, and they're like, yes, this pill will help your sex life. And they go, okay. It also might give you dementia, diarrhea, permanent brain damage. And they read off 75 different side effects and nobody pays attention. They still buy the product, right? Well, this is how they're going to market pre-crime to these people and how it can save you from school shootings and all these other things that don't actually occur, that the government actually carries out on their own, but they make you think they occur so they could bring in things like this.
Imagine a world without murder.
I lost my best friend.
I lost my aunt.
I lost my dad. I lost my father.
I lost my wife.
Just 6 years ago, the homicide rate in this country had reached epidemic proportions. It seemed that only a miracle could stop the bloodshed. But instead of one miracle, we were given 3, the precognitives. Within just 1 month under the pre-crime program, the murder rate in the District of Columbia was reduced 90%.
They were going to be waiting for me in the car. He was going to rape me. I was going to be stabbed.
Right here.
Within a year, pre-crime effectively stopped murder in our nation's capital.
In the 6 years we've been conducting our little experiment, there hasn't been a single murder.
And now pre-crime can work for you.
We want to make absolutely certain that every American can bank on the utter infallibility of this system. And to ensure that what keeps us safe will also keep us free.
Pre-crime? It works.
It works.
It works.
It works.
It works. It works.
On Tuesday, April 22nd, vote yes on the National Pre-Crime Initiative.
So this is the world they want. And it all starts with a digital ID. And that might blow your mind. Well, how do you get to pre-crime and all that stuff? With a digital ID, everything you do online is monitored and tracked. And you might say, well, I don't do anything bad. Oh, yeah, well, maybe you watch too many true crimes. Maybe you watch those crime shows and you research that type of stuff. Oh, guess what? You could be labeled a threat. They're way too into these crime shows. They're watching way too many of it. We'll arrest them because we think that potentially they could be a threat. Oh, this person's online and they're reading about weather modification from the government. Oh, well, that's too much of a threat. It doesn't matter what it is. They're going to push you and force behaviors, like Larry Fink said, which will force you to just be a robot and not be you and never critically think and never do any research on your own. Just be a little piece of meat like the government wants you to be. Be cattle for them. Be an ant that they could squash in a moment's notice and freeze your bank account. They will have full control over all citizens with a digital ID. And they're going to bring it in different ways. They're going to use things to manipulate Christians in America like they already have. Oh, Texas is a conservative state. The porn sites. Oh, yeah, the porn site. How about you shut down the porn industry? Wouldn't that be beneficial? Oh, we can't do that. But what we can do is we could force kids to show age verification online and block them from going on there. Oh, what does that mean? Well, it means we'll need digital IDs for the parents and the kids. That way we can see who's who and we can tell what age they are and we'll tell you what they can and cannot look at. And we'll use porn as an example. And instead of asking the normal question of why do we even have it in the first place, we'll just say, well, it's there and we want to protect your kids from porn. Everyone will go, yeah, that's a great idea. We don't want kids looking at that. Okay, we'll get a digital ID. Or like the stuff in Australia, the social media. Everyone's offing themselves. These kids are getting bullied online. Let's get them off social media. Well, they don't really want you off social media, but they just wanted you to agree with that social media is poison. So that they could say, okay, well, we need age verification so your kids can't create an account till they're 16. Then, of course, everyone will have a digital ID and they'll say, well, social media is actually really beneficial all of a sudden. Now the kids can get on at 12. Now that everyone has a digital ID, we could make sure even your 5-year-old has digital ID that, that they can't get on when they're 8, but we'll make sure at 12 they can. And that's how it goes. They just create these psychoses in your mind to convince you that what's best for you is what they're telling you, which is a digital ID, but it's not. It's the enslavement of humanity. And all these big tech guys have been wanting it and wanting it and wanting it. And you don't hear the alt-right talk about it. They'll talk to you about a tranny and who could play men's sports and all this ridiculous stuff because it keeps you dumbed down. It keeps you unaware of what they're really doing right in front of your face. They're building this out. That's what the data centers are for. It's the surveillance state, the golden dome Trump speaks of. It's not to block missiles from the sky. It's to bring in Skynet, literally. That's what they're doing. That's what Musk is doing. That's what Oracle is doing. That's what Sam Altman of OpenAI is doing. All of them. And you see big tech and how in front of our faces they are? And Zuckerberg, et cetera, these meta data centers that they're building at. These are massive. And they're going to suck all the electricity down. And you're not going to realize, wait, why all of a sudden are we rationing our electricity? Well, because of the climate, they're going to tell you. Because of climate change. We all going to have to shut our electricity off. Oh, there's all this, there's droughts and stuff, because all the resources are going to have to, go to these data centers to help cool, the chips and everything else. Oh, but you won't know because they won't tell you that. They'll just keep you dumbed down. Then they'll shut people like me down for the 90th time, 100th time, 120th time, right? This is the world we're living in, folks. And if people don't wake up to what they're doing and they continue fighting, hating their neighbor because they have a flag of a politician they don't like in their front lawn, then you are part of the problem. But you don't always have to be a part of the problem. You can come out of her. Stop pretending like this is the Giants and the Cowboys playing in a football game. You're not on a team. The people you're rooting for, the side you're on, is working with the other side behind your back. And what they're doing is implementing what they want, this new government control mechanism where the world looks like China and everyone has a social credit score and everybody's frozen out of this and blocked out of that and eventually arrested for thought. And it sounds crazy. It sounds dystopian, but it's the truth. And it's right in front of our faces to see. So Larry Ellison, of course, has his hand in what's going on in the UK. And while people might fill out petitions, the time now is to start saying no. You don't need to even get fired up about it. You just say no. None of us are participating in this. And if you have a problem with it, we'll leave your society. We don't need to be a part of your society anymore. That is an answer. People say, it's not an answer. No, it is an answer. It is an answer. You don't play their game anymore. You don't consent. You start realizing your vote doesn't count, that these are a small group of people who have gained control over your minds to make you think that they're in charge. But they're not in charge. They're not even elected. They run and network through secret societies like Freemasonry, all the way from the children of the D. Malay and the Rainbow Girls and the Job's Daughters, all the way to the top of the pyramid. And these people don't have the type of control they think, but they have control over the minds. And if they have control over your minds, then they can convince you to enslave yourself without you realizing it. And when it's too late, there'll be no going back. Because once a digital ID is in place, there's no going back. Once this surveillance grid is in place, there's no going back. Because they'll make it a federal offense. They'll make it, oh, you're smashing some of our towers down. You're smashing some of our surveillance cameras down. You're trying to get EMP weapons to short circuit our robots. That'd be worse than committing mass murder in this country. You'll get life. You'll get executed in town square in front of everyone so they could set an example. Don't mess with our technology because it's more important than a human life. This is the world, ladies and gentlemen, 2025. Share this video. Help wake people up. I thank you guys for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.